Well, hello coaches, and welcome to this webinar on mBraining. And I really look forward to sharing the next 30 or 40 minutes with you as we go through and explore the beautiful process that is mBraining and give you a little bit of the background into what's gone into mBraining so that you guys can understand that this is not just another course, that this is not just another modality that's been set up. It's actually a body of work that's taken more than 4 years to complete and get to this point, which is the point where now it's available as a certification, and we're seeing transformational changes occurring not only in the coaches learning the process to facilitate somebody through an mBraining session, but also the feedback that we're getting from the people that have been coached with this modality. The changes that they've experienced has been profound. Now, there's a lot of aspects to this particular presentation, and most of them are applicable to all people in all aspects of life. But I really want to make this presentation specific to the people who are coaches that are listening in, so that you can get a better understanding of how it is that this will benefit your coaching practice and how it is that this will facilitate results for your clients like they've never experienced before. So without further ado, I'm going to get stuck into it, and I really believe that you are going to get something out of this. So does anyone out there know what this is? For those of you that don't know, that's okay, because coming across this image, I also didn't know the first time I saw this, because what this is a neuron. And a neuron is something that's found in our brains, and this part of the neuron, the main part, or the body of the neuron, is called the axon. And these little bits of the neuron that are stretching out or reaching out are called the dendrites. And they have the task of stretching out and looking for other neurons that are of a similar nature to attach themselves to. Now, the caption that came with this particular image on the internet was that this is an example of a thought forming. Now, in the context of coaching somebody, this is really significant. And what I'm about to say is really important. As the thought forms, one neuron is created, and then as the thought happens for a second time, more neurons around that thought are created. And you go from having a single thought to, over a period of time of making the same thought over and over again, to creating a thought pattern. So in the coaching context, this is how your clients are going about making up stories in their heads about what it is that's going on for them. They have one thought once, and then they go into the next part of their day, they have that thought again, and now these two neurons that created this initial thought are looking for each other and connecting, and as they connect, they strengthen. Now, if you have that thought over and over again over a large period of time, you end up having a situation where you go from a thought pattern to a thought behavior. Because the amount of times you're having the thought and the amount of neurons that are growing around that thought are actually enhancing that thought and making it part of who you are. Now, your clients will come to you with some of the challenges of the 21st century that we all face, that we all have to deal with from time to time. And they come to us for advice or for assistance or facilitation to help them deal with these modern 21st century challenges. And some of those challenges might be stress and burnout. If you're like me, you've personally experienced at some point in your life some stress or a lot of stress and potentially burnout. Hopefully not, but that may have been the case for some of you listening. Like you and me, your clients are most likely struggling with balancing work-life, where they're doing more of the work and less of the life part, where we take the opportunity to make some extra money to pay for the bills and to keep up with the rent and so on, instead of looking at an opportunity to go out and live the life we'd love to live. Even if that's traveling or doing something that is an interest that doesn't necessarily pay you to do. Pay you money, that is. Now, like me and you, your clients are going to struggle sometimes with effectiveness and wisdom of their decision making. In that sometimes we make silly decisions, right? Sometimes we make the same silly decision more than once. And I would have to admit that sometimes I've made the same decision 3 or 4 times before I finally learned from making that same silly decision. What we have the opportunity to do with this particular modality called mBraining is we have the ability to facilitate wisdom in the decision-making process. And the way that we get to wisdom is really elegant, really simple, and it's really transformative. And as a coach, you would have the power to take your client through this. Some of us will have clients that struggle with happiness and well-being. They might come to you and say, I just want to be happier. And navigating down that path could be quite challenging when they can't get clarity around what it is that's going to make them happier. Lacking happiness does affect our well-being. If you're like me, and in the past, my lack of happiness used to affect my well-being, where it would actually make me physically unwell in my stomach. Dealing with all of those things and with all the other stuff that we've got to put up with in this modern 21st century lifestyle ends up taking us to a point where we start questioning what it is that we're doing on this planet. Your clients are no different to you or me, and they require meaningfulness. They require to have a purpose, a reason why they were put on this planet. Anyone ever got to a signpost that looks like this? If you're like me, again, this is not unfamiliar territory. Sometimes we get to this kind of signpost, and whichever road we take ends up taking us to a place of being unclear, lost, perplexed, disoriented. And it's all about giving us the opportunity to gain clarity. That's what mBraining is about. It's all about facilitating our clients to a signpost that does not look like this, to a signpost that allows them to take a different road and actually get somewhere where they'd rather be. But it's okay, because when we get to a signpost that looked like that, we have the assistance of the self-help movement. And we've got awesome guys like E. James Ron that have come onto this planet and have helped thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people move through the things that are stopping them from fulfilling their lives. And E. James Ron says, it doesn't matter what happens, it's how you respond that counts. And that's a great saying. I do live by that saying, or at least I use it as a motivator. But your clients, like you and me, would be saying, how do I respond? You follow your head, your heart, and your gut. And I'll explain exactly how that happens as this particular presentation moves forward. There's a couple of terms that I need to make you familiar with, and you'll be hearing me talking about mBraining and mBIT. mBIT stands for Multiple Brain Integration Techniques, and it's the name of the field. And embraining is the process we use to facilitate the client to the desired outcome. So when you hear me talking about embraining and mBIT, it's basically the same thing that I'm talking about, just some subtle differences in when I use each word. Now let's give you a little bit of information about your multiple brains. First, we have the cephalic brain, or the head brain. We have the cardiac brain, or the heart brain. And we have the enteric brain, or the gut brain. One thing you need to know about the gut brain is that it starts at the back of your mouth, and it includes your esophagus, all your intestines and stomach, and it actually ends at the bottom of the anus. There's a lot of similarities between our multiple brains, and now you'll start to see why it is that they can all be classified as brains. Now, the cephalic brain, or the head brain, has between 50 and 100 billion neurons, and the cardiac brain has between 30 and 120,000 neurons, and the enteric brain has between 200 to 500 million neurons. Now, why is this important? Remember the first slide that I opened up with was the slide of the neuron. That image was of a neuron that resides in the head brain, but the same kind of neurons actually reside in the heart and in the gut brains. The enteric brain, having between 200 and 500 million neurons, is actually the same amount of neurons that are found in a cat's brain. And any of you who have cats or know of cats and have experienced being around cats know that at between 200 and 500 million neurons, most cats are pretty switched on and are pretty clever animals. And if you come home of an evening and you walk in the house, it's not you that gets looked after first. It's the cat that gets looked after first. It meows, it gets attention, it rubs itself on your legs, and it makes sure that until it gets looked after, that you don't do anything else. Now, what we're suggesting here is that's a significant amount of neurons, and that is a significant intelligence, and this intelligence resides in your gut brain. And if you knew how to access that, and if you knew how to facilitate your clients to access that, it would make a profound difference in their life. The next part that I really want to emphasize on, and I really want you guys to understand, is that the heart brain, having between 30 and 120,000 neurons, is really significant. Have you ever heard of somebody that is known as heartless? Well, studies have shown that the people that are commonly referred to as heartless tend to have 30,000 neurons or less, or more likely on the lower scale of neurons in their heart. And the people that are known as young at heart, regardless of their age, tended to have 120,000 neurons in their heart or more. That is an example of use it or lose it. And that if you don't use the neurons in your heart to remain young at heart, the neurons that are not needed will get removed because they don't need to be used, so therefore they don't need to occupy space in the area around your heart. They need to allow for other things to occur there or to be created there, and they disappear. What I'm alluding to here is that the people that have 30,000 neurons, with some repetitive work and practice on doing things that make them feel good around their heart can actually get to a point where they have 120,000 neurons or more. Pay attention to this slide and the next few slides that are coming up. Because often, as coaches, we calibrate the way people speak and the words that they say. So, when I go through these slides, you might notice that you've heard a lot of these sayings before and that you've used them yourself, and you're using them for a particular reason because you're referring to something in a unique way that other people just understand and just get. The question is, where are those words coming from? Where are those phrases coming from? And how is this relevant to the embraining process? Now, common language that we use when we refer to the head brain are things like this. We talk about people and we say things like, he's running around like a headless chook. Do you see that there's a theme with these particular dot points and what they are referring to? That's right. The theme here is that it's got something to do with the way we perceive things, the way we make meaning, the stories that we create and tell. Common sayings of the heart. Again, looking at this slide, there'll be a few that stand out to you. But you've heard things like, he wears his heart on his sleeve. And what's the theme here? What are we noticing about the heart? What is it referring to? Feelings and emotions. The way we relate to things. That's right. Common sayings of the gut are my favorite, because you hear things like, that's hard to swallow, or we had someone score a goal in the last minute and I was gutted. And if you're from Victoria or you're an Australian and you've been in Victoria, you'll know that we often refer to something that really disappointed us as, I'm spewing about that. And when we come across the person that we like, we get butterflies in the stomach. Now, what are these sayings referring to? I'll give you a little bit of a hint. They kind of start referring to instincts. The theme around them has got to do with movement, mobilization. I'll elaborate on that in a little while. Now, as a coach, this definitely is the most important slide of the presentation, because we need to be aware about something that our clients, or most of our clients, won't be aware of, and that each particular brain has its own actual tasks, the things that it's responsible for. And for the head brain, it's about cognitive perception, the way we make meaning about things, the things that we think, the stories that we create in our head about a situation or about an interaction with somebody that has just occurred. Our heart has the function of allowing us to process emotions, understand what's important to us and what we value. And it's how we go about relating to other people. The gut brain is simply about identity, who we are, what we stand for, self-preservation, whether we take action to get out of a situation that's not good for us. Now, why is this important to know as coaches? How is this going to make a difference to your coaching practice? Well, quite simply, often clients will come in making heart-based decisions around their head. For example, and so that I don't go into too much detail here, they'll say things like, I met somebody that I really liked, but I thought about it for a while, using my head, thought about it, and came to the conclusion that that person was not right for me. A year down the track, I can't get that person off my mind, and my heart still aches for that person. So in that case, the client has made the decision using their head brain around a decision that needed to be made using the heart brain. Okay, so here we are at this slide, which goes a little bit of the way to explaining how we go about coaching somebody through the mBIT process and how you facilitate that process. And we call it following the mBIT high-level roadmap. And the way in which we go up that process is firstly started by a point that's not on this particular slide, and that point being breathing. And each mBraining coaching session starts with a 5-minute breathing exercise called the mBIT balanced breathing exercise. And it's basically 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. So the in-breath lasts for 6 seconds and the out-breath lasts for 6 seconds. And this is practiced for around about 5 minutes before a session starts. What that does is that creates a place for us to get our autonomic nervous system balanced. And when our autonomic nervous system is balanced, it gets us into proper communication with our multiple brains. You may not be aware that most of the communication that happens between our head, heart, and gut actually travels up, actually starts at the gut brain, and as a result of that, the gut brain influences the heart and the head brain more than the head brain influences the heart and the gut brain. Now, once we get into communications with our multiple brains about the challenge at hand, we can specifically communicate them to get them into congruence, where they are understanding, each one of them is understanding the task at hand and what it is that they specifically need to do to support our client in going to the next level. Now, once we have communication and the brains are aligned and they're in congruence about what it is to do next or how to take action on the particular task at hand, then we add the highest expressions of our 3 brains. The highest expressions of the cephalic brain is creativity. So its role is to add creativity to a situation to enable the heart to fulfill its desires. Now, the cardiac brain, its role is compassion. Compassion for others and compassion for self. And by adding compassion into the equation, especially compassion for others, we start going down a process where we are making decisions that are going to be aligned to our values and aligned to our heart. Once we've added creativity of the head and compassion of the heart, the enteric brain or the guts brain role is to create courage, to facilitate courage so that we can take courageous action and move forward. Once we've blended creativity, compassion, and courage into the embraining process and into our facilitation of our client, usually what happens is they get to a point where this amazing emergent wisdom occurs, and often it's not what the coach expected or what the client expected. So it's a little bit different to what you may have experienced in the past. And it's really exciting for me to be sharing this with you. It will enhance your coaching practice, and it will enhance the lives of your clients, and it will enhance your life also once you learn how you can use this mBIT high-level roadmap to facilitate your own change. Thank you so much for being here and taking part in this presentation and listening to me for the last 30 or 40 minutes or a bit longer. I really do appreciate your time. Please feel free to contact me at any time if you have any questions regarding anything that it is that you've seen in this presentation. Feel free to send me an email and I will do my best to respond to you as promptly as possible.